Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don Helbig alongside Ryan Suhr. And Ryan, for episode 6, it's a topic that you and I could talk about forever. It's leveraging your season pass
That's right,
base.
Don. This is a conversation that you and I have had for a long time, not unlike the, perfect mobile app. You and I are both uniquely qualified to talk about this. Me for one good reason, and that's because I'm a very involved season pass member to several parks, and you've got two reasons why. Obviously, you work in the industry, and then tell me about your history as a season pass holder.
Well, I was a season pass holder to a number of different parks for 26, 27 years before I started working in the industry. I was one of the early members of the Kings Island season pass program, getting my pass in 1981. Now, they started selling passes in 1979, but it wasn't a big thing, so I was like pass holder 10,000, I think it was like 881 or something like that. But back then, and for a number of years, for the first 10, 11 years that I had season passes to all these different parks, all it really was a season-long admission ticket. Really, there were no benefits. You didn't get free parking. You didn't get discounts on meals and merchandise. You didn't get any kind of real special events or anything that were exclusive for pass holders. So it took a while for the industry to really start leveraging the pass base, doing some exclusive events for them, and finding other to engage them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but the first like foot in the door benefit that really came out in like the late '80s, early '90s was originally season passes didn't even include parking in most parks, so it was
Right.
a $30 or $40 add-on or $25 to $30 add-on, and then they started throwing that in, and that was kind of the foot in the door to kind of like the craziness we see today. I mean, there are everything from 10% off merchandise to free beer is a season pass perk. So that's a really interesting evolution of the actual whole industry in itself. Because it seems like there's a lot of effort, especially in the early season, put into transferring somebody from a daily ticket holder to a season pass holder. There's like an upsell, there's an upgrade involved in that. Besides the immediate revenue of bringing somebody from a $50 ticket to a $100 season pass, what are some of the benefits of bringing people up to that level?
Well, I think, as parks look ahead, many parks need to convert more of the one-off visitor to season pass holders for more profitable future, really. You want to be able to lock that in and be able to forecast down the road a little bit better. Improve those growth opportunities, whether that's new attractions, maybe hotels, maybe it's acquisitions. So the season pass base, having a strong season pass base is going to be able to allow you to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Having a season pass basis, it's guaranteed future business in a lot of ways. It's guaranteed revenue right now. So obviously there's
and something else. And something else here, Ryan, too, you got to think about too when you have a season pass, it solves two problems for you. The first problem it's going to solve is bad weather.
Mm-hmm.
That tends to depress the one-off sales. They're going to, if it looks like it's going to rain, maybe the day they're going to come, they maybe push it off later and never get around to coming. But when you have a season pass, okay, well, we'll go the next day or we'll go next week. So it really helps solve those problems too. When you're, an amusement theme park, outdoor attractions, you're so weather dependent.
Yeah, I can completely agree with that. And I can tell you that, when I plan trips to parks where, I don't have a season pass, if I'm going, 100 miles to the next city over, I look at the weather. If it's going to be too hot, too cold, or raining, we'll do it the next week or something. And then maybe we don't go. But with the season pass, it's like, it's going to rain Tuesday. Let's go on Wednesday. So that's kind of a luxury. It's almost a benefit to both. The parks get their attendance and you get the flexibility involved with it.
And years ago, you might have bought that advance ticket, 7-10 days out. But now, everybody has, the weather app on their phones, and they're looking at that. They're looking at the forecast. And it really, a season pass just changes that for you. So it also going to be able to generate that repeat business. You're going to build loyalty for your park, through a season pass base.
Yeah. I agree with that, and it's a whole database of customers that you have for the whole year at least, and in most instances you have for several years because it seems like a lot of people are renewals. But let me ask you this: with when you sell individual tickets, you get a certain amount of revenue. When you sell a season pass, it's an upsell from that. So it's usually $100 to $200 for a seasonal park for a season pass. Potentially speaking, if somebody were to visit, say, 4 or 5 times on an individual ticket, that would technically be more revenue. And assuming that people are going to do that, what are some of the things you can do to offset the revenue loss from having one lump sum payment at the beginning of the season rather than smaller incremental payments that end up being more for admission?
Yeah, I think what you find across the industry, if it's a seasonal park, the non-pass holder was probably going to visit maybe 2, 3 times. So you're okay there. But when you look at a Disney World, Disneyland, Universal that's opened year round, and you had those 7-day tickets, that type of a thing, the annual pass, definitely you want to look to find other ways to offset that revenue when you do it that way. But you do things to increase that in-park spending. You add maybe dining plans, drink plans. You have opportunities to buy tickets for friends. You have exclusive events for the pass holders to get them to come on specific dates. So there's things like that you would want to do.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities there. Now, one thing I've noticed is that parks often try to start having their strongest campaigns, in most instances, not all, in like the early to late fall rather than closer to opening day. What are the thought processes behind that? I mean, is that a holiday related thing for the most part?
Well, I think the drive, to get people to buy season passes, it's important no matter when, park's going to decide to put them on sale. The benefit of going on sale, late summer or in the fall, is getting that advance commitment for the next year. You're gaining additional visits, this year, if that's part of the plan where you can come once or twice or maybe, on the remaining operating dates, so you have that opportunity there. I think it adds value for the pass holder, if they can come and visit the current year when they buy a pass for the next year. I think that's a good thing for them. I think you also know, it gives you a chance to really start, being able to forecast for the next year. In January, February, kind of what your upcoming season may look like based on what you do in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of the data behind it is actually pretty valuable. Because especially if you announce like a new ride, I feel like that's the one instance where you're going to get a big rush early on because you can market the two together, and then you can know like, okay, we're going to have a heavy early season. So forecasting would be pretty strong if you knew that. I still like, I mentioned it at the top of the question though, but I think that the holidays are very important with that. I know that some parks run their own campaigns for Christmas and Black Friday and stuff like that. I always thought that it was a weird gift to get. I know you and I outside of the podcast have had the conversation. You said that you always got the season pass for Christmas. I never did. I started getting mine when I was like 12 or 13 from cutting grass and stuff. I don't cut grass anymore, just for the record, because I hate that. But I always thought that it was a tough sell for a Christmas gift simply because you can't use it for 4 or 5 more months. But I guess that's not always a rain through mentality. But I always felt like giving a Kings Island or a Cedar Point or Six Flags season pass for Christmas is kind of like a weird gift to give. It's like giving a pool noodle for Christmas, because you can't use it for a while. But there are campaigns behind it, so I'm guessing that it is successful industry wide. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I mean, I remember getting the pass for Christmas and, knowing that I could not use it, for another, 4 or 5 months. But, there's every park has, a certain time that they're going to do it. And for some, it is going to be that fall season. If you have Halloween events, you have a holiday event, in November, December, that's a good time to do it. But if you're a park that maybe closes, Labor Day, that's the end of your operating season, you can wait a little bit longer to do it. There's not going to be any, urgency to buy a season pass, in August, September if the last operating day is Labor Day.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the urgency involved would be, on the parks end as far as the holiday thing. I'm thinking about it, and maybe I'm being a little hypocritical because I remember distinctly getting like fishing tackle. I was really into fishing when I was younger, and I remember getting fishing tackle for Christmas, and I was so excited about it, even though I wouldn't be able to use it until basically the same time of year for when the seasonal parks open, but that's neither here nor there. So you kind of touched on this before, but what are some of the ideas that industry wide you've seen that have been pretty successful for driving attendance for season pass holders?
Limited time events, something that's maybe got a 10-day, 2-week, 3-week type of run, exclusive events just for the pass holder that only they can do it. Maybe it's, keeping the park open 2 or 3 hours after park close just for the pass holder. Things like that are going to help drive that attendance from the season pass holders when it's limited time events or it's exclusive to them.
Yeah, yeah,
You can also do, they bring a friend. Bring a friends are another thing where, there's only a certain limited time that they can go with their friends. So those kind of limited time offers, help as well.
yeah, I agree. And when we talk about special events, we can break that down a lot further, because special events does not have to be your weekend fireworks or your Mardi Gras or anything like that. It's having food items for a certain month. I've seen a lot of parks do that. Now that there's like a theme park culinary revolution where, theme park food is not hot dogs and hamburgers. It's there's executive chefs now, which is such a weird thought to have. We discuss this every podcast. But, having food items that are only available for a certain amount of time, or having merchandise items that are limited in stock, like all of those are special events. And if you can communicate to your season pass holders, and that comes back down to your blogs and your social media and your public relations, then that's a good way to drive revenue as well, or drive attendance, don't you think?
Yeah, and you just mentioned communicating with your season pass base. It is very important, I think, that you stay in touch with your pass holders. I don't think, as long as you're giving them relevant information, you can't touch base with them enough in terms of using email or maybe the text messaging, those type of programs. You definitely want to stay in communication with them, because even though they have a season pass, there's a lot of times that your park is out of sight, out of mind until you get it back in front of them again. So you want to make sure that you're always communicating, let them know what's coming up, let them know what those special opportunities are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So since it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about, let's talk about communicating with the season pass holders. We, in a previous conversation, I remember telling you that I always looked forward to the monthly mailers I would get from my local park, where it was never new information, but I was 12 or 13 years old, so I loved the pictures of the rides and stuff they put on them. So mailers were huge in the 90s. It's 2022. What are the best ways to communicate with your season pass holders? And furthermore, what's the information you want to collect from season pass holders to make it easier to communicate with them?
Number 1, 2, and 3 is email address.
Okay.
The email that they use. That's still, there's all these different ways you can communicate now, but I still think email is still the best way to do it. And the second way would be through mobile. Being able to send notifications that link to maybe a blog or special offers, upcoming events, those types of things. So those are the two channels, primarily that you want to use to communicate to season pass holders. Sure, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, but not all your followers and page likes are going to be season pass holders. So you want to be able to just go, straight to them. And the best way to do that is email and through those mobile messaging type platforms.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems like the season pass holder email addresses are more of just like an avenue for other things as well. Like you send out the newsletter and it's like, by the way, this is our Twitter handle. And because it seems like you're not going to send out emails to everybody saying like, hey, storm's coming in, we're closing the park early. Twitter is a way better for that, But
yeah,
I suppose,
you want to use it for that. But the thing about it is, you want to be, frequent, but you need to be relevant to in what you're sending them. Just don't send them emails to send them emails. Have something that reminds them, informs them, and has things in that email or that text mobile message that lets them know here's something coming up. You don't want to miss this. That fear of missing out is always a great tool.
Yeah, fear of missing out is probably the one of the worst psychological problems that we have in the day of social media, but it's the best marketing tool you can have. One day only. We're having this concert, we're having this event, we're having this parade. If you don't miss it, if you look away, you're going to miss something. So thanks for contributing to that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and you would think, being a season pass holder, that you're always in the know, but you're not. I mean, there's so many things that come up. Everyone's busy, with work. The kids are playing, baseball, softball, soccer, football in the fall, those types of things. So you have to make sure that you're top of mind awareness with them, and that's by communicating on a regular basis.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So when you have a season pass base, It's almost like you run a small city. Everybody's on foot. Population changes every day, but you know when they walk into that city, what they buy, what they eat, and essentially when they leave. How can you leverage that information? That seems like a kind of perfect from a marketing standpoint.
Well, it's a way to, the forecast, project, what the business is going to be on certain days when you understand the guest behavior, how they're using their pass, when they're using it, how late, they're going to stay. It helps you with your budgeting, your staffing, just everything across the board business wise.
Do you think that there's anything that because I know that like the Kroger Plus card for Kroger, which for those of you outside of our region of the United States, it's a major a grocery, but essentially they look at like a formula for what you purchase, and they figure out that if you buy these things, you're also likely to buy this thing. Do you think that anyone's ever really leveraged that in terms of like they often buy a snack, or let's say they never buy a snack, but I bet for $2 off Auntie Anne's, they would try it. Like, have you ever heard of that being done? I don't think I have inside of a park.
No, I mean I certainly have heard of it. It has been done. I've seen that when I've gone to different parks. Getting the mobile message, as a pass holder, or an email to let me know what's happening. So, that information and that, putting that into play, it is being used.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned either a mobile message or email, and that's funny because that's actually two different avenues to go. We talked about with the perfect mobile app that theoretically speaking, you could push messages to people who are only within the geofence of the park. So people are in the park, and you say, "Hey, dollar off Auntie Anne's if you show the app." That drives per capita spending. The people already there, you already have the attendance. But an email out is driving somebody to the park to spend this. So that's an interesting dynamic. How you can really go either way with it. And email's been a
Exactly.
technology for 20. Well, I mean, it's been technology for a long time, but it's been widespread for 25 years. But the mobile app thing is new. So it's almost like a whole new door that just got opened up for being able to drive per capita spending in the park.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to make sure that you're not sending them an offer that's going to be irrelevant to them. So, for example, as recently at a sporting event, used their app, and the last 3 times I've gone there, my offer has been $2 off at Great Clips. So, for me, I'm not going to use that, right? So,
Do you
you want
think
to
that
make
you
sure
could
that you're
share
giving them
that
something they
coupon?
can use.
I have hair. Can you? I okay. Anyway, so no, I appreciate your humor.
But just to show you though, you want something that no matter who receives that message, it's something that they would be interested in and that they can use.
So for you audio listeners who have never watched the video podcast, Don is very, very bald, so he would not use a great clips. Then again, they shave beards and stuff like that, so maybe that's what they're getting at. See,
I don't know.
that's additional revenue. I don't think that it's as bad as you think.
And Ryan, people in my situation, we prefer hair challenged
Hmm.
as the terminology.
So Don, it seems like one of the trends in the industry, and it's pretty widespread at this point, is to have season-long add-ons such as meal plans, drink plans, fast pass, anything like that. The benefit to the individual is pretty obvious. If you're going to visit 6 or 7 times, then there's an intrinsic value to a lot of this stuff. What are some of the benefits to park operators to have programs like this?
The purchase of an all-day dining plan, for example, that's made the guests more invested in spending the whole day at the park. So you're going to lengthen that stay for the guest. The more likely they're going to spend on other things like merchandise, snacks, games, desserts. So that's where the advantage is for the parks, Ryan.
Do you think that there's a possibility of being overpassed, shall we say? Because you mentioned a lot of those things, but I've seen season long stuff except for merchandise. You can't really do season long merchandise that I know about. But I noticed there are parks that do season long like arcade passes. So do you think there's a possibility of doing too much of it?
I think it's what the demand is. So you can do as much as the demand allows you to do, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so if you look about where you spend money, I knew that when the meal plan thing seemed to be the first one, and then talking to a lot of people in the industry, it seemed like they were like, how can I do that? The people that were, selling the fudge were like, can I do a season long fudge thing? So, some of it came to fruition, some didn't. I saw that there's one park I went to this year that had like, for $100 you could play unlimited non-ticket games or something. And I think that's cool because I don't think that the average season pass holder spends $100 in the arcades per season. I do. I've been hooked on this one game and I've been spending a fortune on it. I don't know why, but I think that if the initial upfront probably outweighs what they would spend, that's usually a huge factor, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and also you have to look before you would introduce something is, what's the capacity?
Right.
What's the value going to be for the guest and what's the capacity going to be for the park? Like there's certain attractions, that you think, well, maybe there should be, season pass for that. But then you look at the capacity and just realize, guests per day and how many would have it. And it just, the math just doesn't work for you. So you have to look at that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that I've noticed is that, parks that as they've introduced season-long things, especially food, a lot of the investment has been in the capacity, they're, as opposed to having shacks and stuff like that where they sell walking tacos, they've got huge mess halls. Every park seems to have one now. So
Yeah.
that is part of the investment. So, Don, do you have any final thoughts on leveraging your season pass base or any final bits of advice or anything like that?
Just stay in touch, communicate with the pass holders, let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean it's very important to communicate it out because if nobody knows about it, then you just wasted a lot of money. All right. So, Don, we always do this at the end of the podcast, but we're gonna remember to do it earlier on, even though it's not the beginning. So make sure you like us on your favorite podcast apps. Search for the Attractions Group podcast. Give us a subscribe. We are building our community now, so we really appreciate everyone's support. We've been blown away by how many people have downloaded it and come up to us at various parks and stuff and said that they've enjoyed it and they've learned something. So thank you so much. The drive that we're trying to do right now is to get everybody to subscribe on YouTube. Hold on, I got a little graphic to put up here. Yeah, okay. Everyone should subscribe on YouTube. Look for the Attractions Group podcast, all right? And then on YouTube, that's the visual version of the show. So you can look at me and Don's noggins for, an hour or whatever long the show is. But with YouTube, we can do live streaming. When we do live streaming, we can communicate with you directly. We can have chats and stuff. So that's one of our short-term goals in the next maybe month or so is to be able to do that. Actually, one thing that we have discussed is that we want to do a live stream during the Golden Ticket Awards and kind of just give our commentary and, high five the people that win and stuff. So there's a lot to work out with that. It's not a guarantee, but it would be really fun to do that. So we're kind of early on in the subscription process with YouTube. So if you guys could subscribe, it would be very, very beneficial to us. And I think it'll build a great community for you. Oh, Don. Guess what it's time for? Yep, it's time for Pick 6. This is when we pick 6 of the most interesting stories in the theme park industry and we give our commentary on them. So, story number 1, Don, this is you this time. You get the first story. Tell us what's going on at Universal.
Well, Ryan, Universal Orlando has patented AR headsets. Guests of Universal Orlando may soon be wearing these futuristic helmets while roaming around the park, according to a pretty credible source, the Orlando Business Journal.
The Orlando Business Journal. Awesome. Now, augmented reality is something that a lot of people are talking about nowadays. In fact, there's strong rumors out there that Apple is going to come out with one. Whenever Apple comes out with something, it kind of makes it a thing. When, they even advertised when they came out with a 5G iPhone, that made 5G real. That they marketed that with Verizon, and I think it's true. So where do you see AR going in the theme park industry? Obviously, the two are made for each other, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's certainly a place for it. For me, I don't know that it would be something that I particularly would want to be experiencing, with all the other things there is to do. But, there's certainly a place for it. And I think you're going to see more and more, parks throughout the industry, looking to incorporate this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you with that. And one of the things that's always come to mind for me is that when it comes to AR, I feel like there's a novelty involved with it, but there's nothing that can replace actually having physical things there. So if you look at, for example, Universal Studios, a lot of their rides were screen based for a long time. And as a result of that, they got a reputation for, you go there and you ride around, you look at screens. And they're trying to backpedal from that now. I'm wondering if AR is going to be very similar, where AR, people want some AR, but they don't want all AR. Like, can you see that maybe being a dynamic that's possible with this?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just going to be a little different, as you're walking around Universal Orlando and you see, these guests wearing these helmets.
Yeah, and yeah, no, the technology is really cool and it's very valuable. And I honestly think that you're going to have, the AR glasses that everyone's going to be wearing in 5 years or whatever. But integrate into a theme park thing where they project something there. I think that a little bit of it will go a long way, but relying on it will make it so, because if you can do something in a park and it blows your mind, in a year you're going to be able to do that at your house. So they almost need to pump the brakes on that one. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, that's exciting. Again, it's a patent, so it's not announced or anything like that, but that's a few years away, but we'll have to see what happens with that, don't you think?
Yep, we'll keep an eye on
All
it.
right. So story number two, and this was coming from a park that's very near and dear to us because it's run by a good friend. At Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger has an open date. So Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger is a new dive B&M coaster. And the thing that's unique about it is it has a 95-degree drop. So it's actually a little bit bigger of a drop than you're used to, because a B&M dive coaster is usually 90 degrees. So this one curves in on itself, kind of like the S&S Locos or like Maverick at Cedar Point. The open date is going to be July 30th, and then we got a tweet out of Six Flags. I think we got it out of Jeffrey Siebert himself, the general manager, and he put up a picture of his crew, and he was talking about how, they spent all night certifying this ride. So you've got to run it a certain number of cycles in order for it to be certified by the state. So that's really exciting. So Don, what do you think about dive coasters in general? Are you a big fan of them? Have you been on a lot of them?
Oh yeah, I love dive coasters. I think they're, that experience for me is, so unique that it's kind of like the drop tower type rides where no matter how many times that you're going to experience it, you still really can't pick that moment, that exact moment when it's gonna drop. So it has an added element to it. I've always enjoyed the dive coasters.
Yeah, I have too. I think they're kind of underrated. They're really fun, and for those of you who haven't experienced them, they actually do this sadistic thing where they hang you over the edge and hold you there for a few seconds before dropping you. So that's really crazy. So that's July 30th down there at Fiesta, Texas, in San Antonio. So that is a real hidden gem of the Six Flags chain. It seems like Jeffrey and his team down there do a lot to make sure that everything's themed and stuff. So that's such a cool park. When was the last time you were at Fiesta, Texas?
It has been a while. I would say probably 2002, 2003 range.
Oh yeah, so we're in a completely different world now. That's a couple ownership changes for Six Flags, but the whole park's built into a quarry, which I think is really interesting, and some of the rides actually interact with the quarry walls. So I think that's so cool. So anyway, yeah, was it July? I got to pull up the graphic again so I could tell. July 30th is the open date for
Like,
Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger. So make sure that you visit San Antonio, Texas. Remember that they are now year round. I believe they're only open weekends during the off season, but you can go down there and enjoy this fantastic new ride and, get your new dive credit, Awesome. So, Don, story number three, since you are the quintessential Disney guy, tell us what's going on with Disney now.
well, new Magic Bands are coming to the Walt Disney World Resort starting next week. The Orlando Weekly is reporting this. The all-new Magic Band, seems like they've updated this multiple
Right.
times, but it'll have official, and we presume magical coming from Disney. It'll debut again, we said, looking July 27 type range. The new wearable technology will offer an array of new amenities compared to the previous Magic Bands. Guests will be able to embark on adventures with characters like Tinkerbell. I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, part of part of the lure of Disney is trying to figure out how they do it. And I think this near field communication technology that they use for the Magic Bands is incredible. I'm a huge proponent of it. I know that it cost I think from what I understand, I think that the published original budget was $1 billion to outfit Disney World, and then they ended up reporting that it was like 5 billion or something to actually do it. But the benefits have been there, because not only can you you can load money on it. We talked about that with the cashless thing. You can open your hotel door and stuff, but you can also have a unique experience with it, and that's what the Magic Band Plus is all about. The Band Plus, what they've announced so far is that it'll interact with the 50th anniversary stuff. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but you can interact around the park with 50th anniversary statues or whatever, and in the Star Wars area. I know that right now you can interact use the app to like start up one of the droids or whatever, but you're going to be able to use your Magic Band for that. So Don, the Magic Band thing, it's funny because they put it at Walt Disney World, but it hasn't really gone to their other Disney locations. And I think it's probably a cost thing. But do you think that technology like that is the future of the industry?
Well, I mean, certainly it's going to be for, Disney, but, you'd like to see more things like that. But you mentioned the cost, it's exorbitant, so who has that, kind of money? So I don't know that you would ever see it, like industry wide. But definitely, it's interesting. It's engaging. Uh, so you'd like to see it rolled out everywhere, but I just don't see how it'd be feasible to do that
Let me
everywhere.
give you an example of what I'm thinking as far as it rolling out everywhere. And by everywhere, I don't necessarily mean, the park in the middle of Pennsylvania that has one ride, obviously. It's kind of like the cashless thing. We're talking about on a certain scale at least. But let me give you an anecdote. So there was an article, I think it was in USA Today, with the CEO, well, now former CEO of WWE, Vince McMahon, and this was like 2005. Now it's probably like 2008 or nine, and he was talking about how their weekly show was going HD. Okay, so the reporter asked him, since you guys are always considering yourself like on top of stuff, like why didn't you go HD, 3 years ago when it became available on the airwaves? And furthermore, why didn't you wait till the first of the year? Like, why now? Essentially, is what they were asking. And he said, "There's always a golden zone. There's always a time when it's too early and it's too expensive and it's too late and it's passe, and you have to adopt right in that golden zone." So I think that as the technology improves and it gets cheaper and you can start outfitting parks in the millions rather than the billions, there's going to be a benefit there. But then again, if you're a park, you don't want to get it 15 years from now when everyone's seen it already. So I think that there is a case for that. Don't you agree?
I mean, yeah, there's certainly a case for it, but I think also, you have to look at, what the opportunity to use it is for a guest. Most of the seasonal parks, you're drawing from, maybe 100, 120 miles, for the most part. They're not staying on, these, the hotels, those types of things. So I think you just want to, if it's just for an in-park experience, it's going to be different than what you're going to do at a Disney, where you are, normally staying on property at one of the resorts. You're going to the different, Disney things around Orlando and that. So there's a lot of different ways you can use that than just in the park.
Yeah, I mean, well, what I was envisioning for your regular Six Flags, Hershey, whatever park would be, it would be a Magic Band in lieu of season pass. So you tap to get into the park. The declining balance or whatever if you wanted to. And then if you want to have the interactive elements, you could. And then one thing that I thought was cool that they do with the Magic Bands that I think is a huge benefit is a lot of parks offer season long ride photos, like different programs involved with that. And I've had that on and off, but oftentimes I didn't get the photo because there's a big crowd of people there looking at their photo, and I don't want to deal with it, and it's just not worth it. And then, you have a declining value at that point, so you don't get it the next year. But I know on Seven Dwarfs Mine Ride at Disney World in Orlando, they actually have it so there's an NFC communication thing in the lap bar, so it knows if you with a Magic Band have the photo pass, you're sitting in that seat, and it sends it to you automatically. I think there's a benefit for things like that. I mean, and we can sit here and speculate as to what you can use it for besides that. But the fact that, it identifies who you are, where you are, what you're trying to do, and it's able to take action on it. I think those statements alone, you could think of 10 or $15 million ideas to implement.
Yeah, no, I do think you could see down the road where a lot of parks transition from plastic to a band, for the season pass with the technology that's out there. I can definitely see it going that route.
Yeah, and then it comes down to, when we talk about time frames, they came out with the Magic Bands, like, God, it was like 10 years ago now. But nowadays smartphones are so good, and, like, most people have these Apple Watches. Um, if I had to choose, like, when I went to obviously there's a novelty about having a Magic Band, but if I was a regular in Orlando and I was an annual pass holder and I had to say, okay, I can either use my Apple Watch or I can use my Magic Band, I'm sure as heck using my Apple Watch, because I don't have to root around and find it and put it on and have an extra thing on my wrist and so on. I use my watch for everything. I use my watch for payments, for my season passes, everything. Just because pulling out my phone is one less thing I have to do. So I think that maybe, contradicting what I said earlier, maybe in 5 years or so, the spirit of the technology is there, but not necessarily with the bands themselves, because you got to think the distribution would be kind of expensive too. Even if they're, maybe $1 each to manufacture, and then, I mean, the price would come down, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of season pass holders in some instances. Like that's a good chunk of change. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, just handing out anything to all season pass holders and stuff is just, I mean, yeah, the price is pretty incredible. Don, we need to celebrate. What today is the 24th. That makes tomorrow one of the greatest days of the year.
National Carousel
National
Day, my
Carousel
favorite
Day.
day of the year.
Dude, carousels, they're one of those things where, if carousels and band organs, like things like that, if they don't force a smile on you, then there's something wrong. National Carousel Day really embodies, carousels and how wonderful they are, and they're ornate and they're fun to ride and they make you feel like a kid again. Don, what's your favorite carousel?
Well, I'm going to go with the one at Kings Island, the Grand Carousel, for a number of reasons. Number one, it was the first carousel that I ever rode. First one that I was, kind of drawn to as a young kid when it was at Cincinnati's Coney Island before it went uh, to Kings Island in 1971. But one's, kind of special. It's one of 89 carousels built by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company. It was one of the last. It's labeled number 79. But it's just always been, a part of my memories. I think when you think about carousels, one of the things that they do is they conjure up those childhood memories. And every time I walk by the Grand Carousel Kings Island, I think back to those days at Coney Island, my first rides on it and that. So, that's one of the things that makes carousel special. They just remind you of a simpler time of your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, carousels are cool. Now, let me ask you this. This is something that I don't know if there's a straight answer or not. People call them carousels and they call them merry-go-rounds. What's the difference between a carousel and a merry-go-round, or are they the same thing?
They are not the same thing. I think when you look at carousels, they all turn uh, counterclockwise, and a merry-go-round, they revolve clockwise. So that's basically your big
Wait,
difference
that's
there.
true? That's real? Are you lying to me?
Yeah, yeah. You go to a playground and look at the little merry-go-round. It's going to, rotate. It's going to revolve clockwise. And then you look at the Grand Carousel, or you go to King's Dominion, Dollywood, Knoebels, which has a fantastic carousel down at Knoebels. But you look at them; they're all traveling
Okay, okay.
counterclockwise.
We need to break this down further because you literally just blew my mind this late in the show. So first of all, you're not making this up, right? Like is this something you observed, or is this like in
No,
stone somewhere?
it's
Oh
observation.
God.
And I remember back to the first. When I grew up in Deer Park, Ohio, when I was a kid. Uh, we had Chamberlain Park was right behind us, and they had the little merry-go-round. And I remember we had to run, in that counterclockwise, or not, I mean, the clockwise way to, when you're running, and then you hop on and it's going clockwise. Then you go to these amusement theme parks, you're getting on the carousel, and you are going counterclockwise. So it was an observation.
Yeah. For me, it's I always kind of defined it that yeah, a merry-go-round is a ride and a carousel is a work of art. So something like Kings Island, Kings Dominion, any of the PTC stuff that's a carousel because it's ornate and it's got a band organ, that sort of stuff. Not that any one of those things is necessarily baked into my definition. But when we talk about like the fiberglass ones, like the chance ride ones that are like for kids and stuff, that's more of a merry-go-round. So when we're talking about, a boat versus a yacht, are they both boats? Yes. But one's a yacht and one's a boat, and you kind of draw the line yourself as to which one's which. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. But you mentioned, these horses and different, animals that you see on the carousels being, pieces of art. Sure, it doesn't go 300 feet, high. It doesn't go 90 miles an hour. But these are classic attractions, for me, it's one of the first rides that I'm going to seek when I go to a park. I'm going to experience the carousel. I'm going to make sure I ride it. It's a must-do attraction for me wherever I go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually kind of judge a park on how they how they treat their carousel, because if you see their carousel and it's, ornate and they kept it up, to me it implies that you care, and you have the means to care for it. But if it's, you've got 100-year-old carousel and it looks 100 years old and stuff, that's just sad in my opinion. All right.
No, they're kind of like the heartbeat of your park. When you
Yeah.
come in, a lot of them are located along the midways, or they're in like certain, old traditional, theme park, amusement park type
Hmm.
settings. So, I mean, they're an important piece of your ride lineup.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So anyway, Don, time to move on to your second favorite city besides Norwood, Ohio. Tell us what's going on in Tampa.
Well, in the Tampa Bay area, Surf Park is envisioned for Tampa Bay. It would be a large lagoon with ocean quality manufactured waves. It'd be surrounded by theme park style amenities, like restaurants, bars, concert spaces, maybe even hotels. They're looking to make this a reality in 2025, and I think it's just what the Tampa Bay area needs. I'm sure they have Busch Gardens there, but when you look just up the road to Orlando, in Orlando, there is so much to see, so much to do. You simply can't do it all in a day or two, so you spend a week there. At Tampa, not that case right now. So something like this would, bring maybe 800,000 extra visitors a year to the Tampa Bay area.
Hmm.
And instead of spending 1 or 2 days there, maybe you're spending 3 or 4 now
Yeah,
there.
I completely agree. One thing I've always noticed about Tampa is that it's a beautiful city. There used to be a situation where, if you were going down to Florida for Disney, you go to Orlando. If you were going down to Florida for the beach, you would go to the Clearwater, Tampa area. Nowadays, it seems like Panama City Beach is more like that city, being closer, a closer drive, especially from this area. Um, but yeah, so this surf park, my understanding, and are you reading the article the same way, where essentially it creates artificial waves, and then you can learn to ride a
Yes.
surfboard?
Yep,
How good of a
exactly.
surfer are you, Don? Now I see you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Not at all.
Okay,
Never my
you ever
thing.
tried it?
So once, and it was not
Well, you
fun.
probably had that
I
emblem
did.
from the Brady Bunch around your neck, the gray Brady wore. That was bad luck. You know what I'm talking about? Of course, you know what I'm talking about. It's Brady
Oh
Bunch.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. No, but I mean, I tried it, and I mean, you know, there's a skill involved with that, and that was not one of the skills that I possessed was
Yeah,
surfing.
yeah. There's like balance. That's one of the things that I'm not great with. Is for something that's like squiggly and stuff. I can't do it. Now, one thing that does remind me of is a place I helped do the grand opening PR for called Wake Nation, and it's up in Fairfield near you. And that's in Joyce Park. So shout out to Wake Nation. I haven't been there in like 10 years, but that's a cable wakeboarding park. And so as opposed to being towed behind a boat, they had a circular lake, and they had this cable system up above where it would tow you around on a wakeboard. So I was able to do that, but that's an extra like a third point of gravity, I guess, a third point of balance. So I was able to pull that one off. Awesome. So surf park, hopefully coming to Tampa. That's not something that is has broken ground or anything like that, but
It's a vision.
it's a
It's a
vision.
vision,
So
Ryan.
I don't think they have necessarily any like land tied down or anything. But yeah, when that thing, if they do end up breaking ground, we'll have to follow the progress of that on the program here, Don. Okay, so story number 6 of the pick six. There is a new attraction coming to the American Dream Mall called Active Games. Now, Active Games, the American Dream Mall is up in the Meadowlands, New York, New Jersey area, and that's home to Nickelodeon Universe, which is an indoor theme park, and it's a mall owned by the owners of Mall of America. Active Games is a modern arcade, so it's not so much about sitting down playing video games. It's more about VR and physical stuff and probably escape rooms and stuff like that. But so, Don, do you see this as the future of video games in the theme park industry? Is more of the hands-on stuff, or do you think that there's a future for sit-down games and stuff? I mean, I feel like that it's changed a lot in the last 10 years anyway, you know?
Yeah, it definitely has evolved. This is where we're at right now. So I think, the time is right. We talked earlier about, what's the right timing to do, different things with the technology, with the magic bands. But I mean, it's the same thing where you've hit that time where, it's grown to this level. It's, got a great and growing fan base, for this kind of activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's I think it's kind of cool. So when I was in the escape room business, half decade ago when it was young, we talked to a park operator about opening an escape room at a park. And they said it would be profitable, it would be successful, but you must generate a certain amount of revenue per square foot, and it just not have the throughput to generate that. Um, that kind of makes me wonder because it's like it's almost like with arcades that you kind of want to get them in and out as quickly as possible. Something like this would take a little bit longer, but then again, you can always charge more for a longer experience. Like, don't you think?
No, I agree with that. It's definitely an interesting concept, and the gaming industry. I mean, it's there's a lot of people interested in it.
Yeah, I remember at a park that I go to, they had like it wasn't EA Sports, it was some sort of gaming competition, and there was a lot of people there. Like, I can't even believe it's a thing. I don't understand video games. Like, I played Nintendo when I was younger, but I've never owned an Xbox or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, and you
people
wouldn't
are
believe
cheering
some
them
of the
on.
following. Yeah, the following that some of these gamers have, when they're out in public somewhere, that it's like seeing uh, Justin Bieber or something on stage, where they just rush to him and want to get pictures with him, want to get autographs, all those kind of things. So, these gamers have a huge following too.
Yeah, yeah, they really do. And it's funny how people get a following, and I'm guilty of this too. So this is going to transition into a future episode when we start talking about influencers and stuff. But they're on the outside looking in. Let's step off the whole like video game thing because this is going to be true for them too. But they're the people that do the daily vlogs and stuff. And it's kind of like from an outsider looking in, you wonder like, why do you care what this guy's doing today? But you start watching a few of them, you feel like you know them, and you're interested in,
Yeah,
oh, they went to Costco today. It's stupid, but it's mindless, and but like, what isn't anymore? It all started with the reality TV and stuff, and this just takes that to another level. But yeah, the gamers and stuff, they probably, because they stream on like Twitch and stuff, and don't ask me to explain Twitch. I do not understand Twitch, but uh, they have a following and stuff, and that's another opportunity for somebody you could bring into your park. I mean, just bring them into just to play a video game.
exactly. Like I said, they've got huge followings. To me, it's it's after my when I was my 20s, and that there wasn't anything like that. So today, they're superstars.
Yeah, they truly are. Well, anyway, Don, that brings us to the end of pick six. So, any final thoughts that have come up in the last few minutes about the season pass thing or anything like that, or any final words of advice before we pick up the program again next week?
Season. I mean, it's huge. It's interesting how it's evolved over the last, say, 40, 45 years for parks, where at one time it was maybe 10% of your business. Then maybe it was one third, where it was one third season pass, one third group sales, one third, was the the single day ticket purchaser to now where just about everything you do is going to revolve around building that season pass base, and then everything else comes after that.
All right, Don. Well, that ties up episode 6, talking about season pass sales. I was thinking, 6 episodes in, probably around 10, we're going to start getting a bunch of sponsors and stuff, don't you think?
I don't know, Ryan. I don't know that we're the type of people that are, going to be in it just for the
Yeah,
money.
I mean, I feel like people only do this just to get paid, and that's just really sad.
It's not us.
Anyway, so I think everyone knows what I'm drinking. Diet Coke here. What do you got in your Bucky's cup? Bucky's gas station,
Mountain Dew
Richmond,
Zero.
Kentucky.
Yeah, Mountain Dew Zero.
Oh, I like Mountain Dew Zero. It tastes a lot like Mountain Dew. The diet I can't do. There's something about that's just it's unpalatable to me. But the Zero, I'm a big fan of that. A little on the sweet
Yeah, it
side, so I
tastes like
can't
the
do it all
original.
day. Awesome.
Yeah, but it's close to tasting like the original, wouldn't
I
you
would
say?
say that it's probably like in a side by side test, you could tell the difference. But if I randomly handed you a Mountain Dew and then a few hours later handed you a Zero, you probably wouldn't be able to tell which one's which. I honestly, I think Coke Zero is kind.
Maybe,
I mean, to
maybe.
me, but like Coke Zero, I feel like Coke Zero definitely has. It's a little less sweet, a little bit more bitter than a normal Coke, just a little bit. But so I know they reformulated it and then went from Coke Zero to Coke Zero Sugar. My girlfriend swears that this isn't true and I make it up, but I'm pretty sure they reformulated it again like 3 months later because maybe it was the same marketing campaign, but it went from being good to being like really good, and now it's really really good. So I don't have any Coke Zero on me. That's why I'm drinking the Diet Coke. But the Coke, especially this freestyle. Oh God, I don't drink like normal drinks. I don't like to have that kind of sugar intake, but Coke Classic out of the freestyle, like once a month, I'll treat myself to just one good swig of that, and it's so fresh and so gosh. So Coke at attractions_group, send us a DM to sponsor us. I already said I like your Coke Zero stuff. I think you sell Coke at Bucky's.
Yeah, yeah, Coke
Awesome.
Zero's great. I have a supply of Coke Zero at home too.
Awesome. All right. Well, once again, Twitter at attractions_group. Follow us on your favorite podcast apps. And then you make sure you follow us on YouTube. Look for the Attractions Group podcast. Following us on YouTube will allow us to start doing live streams so we can interact with you guys with a live chat and stuff. We are essentially a weekly podcast. We're still getting our cadence down, so we don't have a set day yet. But any kind of feedback as to what day you think we should have our podcast up, or at least up by, would be very helpful. And once again, thank you so much for your support. So Don, once again, thank you for putting up with me for this fine hour on this program. And
Well, it's been fun,
we
Ryan.
will see everybody next week. Thank you guys so much.